Hello, little Vickies. Welcome back to my channel. Tonight, I'll be sharing 11 Glitch in the Matrix stories that are allegedly true. If you like what you hear, please subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the like button as it's incredibly helpful to me here on YouTube. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday by 5 p.m. Pacific. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it more than I can possibly say. Now it's time to relax and get on with the stories. Years ago, I was in the lowest point of my life. I harmed myself and had so many suicidal thoughts. One day, I decided to end all of it. I wrote a letter saying goodbye to everyone and listing the names of my loved ones at the end of the note. I put myself in the bathtub and taped the note on my door. I put my favorite songs on so I can at least have a little fun while I die. I made a little drink of poisonous stuff to drink just in case I didn't die. I drank the drink first and paused because that was literally disgusting, but I had to swallow. I then proceeded to stab myself in the throat 2 times or so. I can't remember, but I was too weak to stab fast because I was in so much pain. Then I passed out. I didn't die, but instead, I saw my body lifeless in a camera angle. It was truly disturbing, seeing myself dead and deformed like that. Fluids were coming out of my mouth, my eyes were still. Then I woke up, the drink still in my hand. I was confused, disturbed, and terrified. I cannot process what I just saw. I decided not to do it because I can't imagine my parents finding me like that. I'm 4 years clean of self-harm and suicidal thoughts. It sounds insane when I try to say this out loud, but my boyfriend and I live 2 miles outside of town in the country. Yesterday, I had to run to the grocery store, so I grabbed my boyfriend's keys, as my car is not drivable right now, and headed toward town. About 1/4 of a mile up, the most unreal, freaky thing I've ever had happen to me definitely happened. I saw a vehicle approaching from the opposite direction that was unmistakably my boyfriend's car, the same one I was driving. I looked at the driver as he passed, and it was my boyfriend driving it, looking at me just as confused as I was looking at him. I called him immediately and asked what the hell that was, and of course he had no idea what I was referring to, and I didn't think he would since he was at home when I left. I got to the grocery store and sat in the car shaking and dumbstruck, trying to figure out what had just happened. It took me a good 15 minutes to feel sturdy enough to go into the store. I don't know exactly what happened, obviously, but I have my thoughts. I want to start by saying that I've never done drugs, have no history of mental illness, and I wasn't drinking at around 7:30 a.m. when this happened, nor had I the night before. I take the bus in the morning and I wait at a pretty large outdoor terminal. Lots of people walk their dogs and walk around it in the morning by where I normally stand. 2 days ago, I saw a tall guy walking a dog that was a golden retriever type. That's not unusual. He was wearing a gray sweater and khakis and was tan in complexion. I looked away for a second, and it was like he and the dog had both paused. Weird, I thought, until the exact same man, just with a yellow lab instead, came walking down the hill. The 2 of their profiles lined up in front of my eyes about 7 feet in front of me, and they became the same person, with the lab being the dog that won out. I wouldn't have believed this happened and would have chalked it up to me being tired or something if the girl sitting there with me hadn't exchanged shocked glances with me. I also saw the lab with him today. It's really trippy. I work at a financial institution, and as part of my role, I coordinate training for all new hires within the first few weeks of their onboarding. The process begins when local managers send me the names and contact details of the new hires so I can reach out to them for a brief introduction and to set the expectations of the training material. Prior to the start of the pandemic, I would simply reach out to the new hire at their new office phone number. However, with the new WFH changes, I would now reach out to mobile numbers and residential phone numbers. All in all, a very similar process to what I was doing before, just with the caveat of having to reach out to people at home. As per usual, I received a new spreadsheet with the names and info of the new hires I needed to contact when I came across a quite unique name. I picked up my headset and dialed the number provided. New hire. Hello, this is name. Me. Hi, good morning, this is me, calling from the financial institution. Did I catch you at a good time? New hire. Yes, this is great. However, could you please call me at my landline? My mobile service is not very reliable in this area. I wrote down the phone number she provided and we hung up. Immediately, I dialed the phone number and waited for the dial tone. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. Older woman. Hello? Me. Hi, good morning. My name is Me and I'm looking for the new hire. Can I speak to her? Older woman. Sorry, who are you? Me. I'm Me, calling from financial institution. She asked me to call her back on this line. Is she available? Silence. Me. Hello? Older woman. What do you mean she asked you to call her back? When? Me. I was just talking to her and she said reception in this area is not very reliable and to please call her back at this number. Older woman. I'm sorry, but that's impossible. She died 3 days ago. Me. Is this telephone number provided by the new hire? Older woman. Yes, that is correct. Me. I'm sorry, I may have written the number down incorrectly. I apologize for the inconvenience, and I'm very sorry about your loss. I hung up and was lost for words. I somehow managed to write down the wrong phone number and reached a residence with a recently deceased person who had the same unique name. I am certain I wrote down the correct number, but it is possible that the poor connection made me write a different number. I don't know what to think. This is an odd coincidence. Edit. I reached back out to the new hire's mobile number and asked her to share the phone number again and confirmed the number I dialed was correct. I was certain she would give me a different number where the digits were flipped, and it might have just been a small dyslexia moment. I'm not so sure I was pranked by a family member, but it is possible that a senior resident with a mental disability might have answered and given me that info. Regardless, I didn't question the new hire, as it is none of my business if other residents live there and have access to the phone line. The next call I made, back out to her landline, the new hire picked up. Okay, so I've read the rules and I'm pretty sure this belongs here. I'm really sorry if not. The weirdest thing that's ever happened to me is I was about 19 years old and I went to my mom's house because my daughter's dad was dropping her off to me there. Mutual ground, less complications at the time. My mom wasn't in, but she leaves the back door open for me, so I went in and made myself a coffee while I waited for everyone. I sat down at the breakfast bar with my coffee and started to scroll on my phone for a bit, waiting for my drink to cool down and stuff, when the cat came through the cat flap behind me. I turned to greet the kitty and accidentally elbowed my coffee all over the breakfast bar counter. It was dripping onto the floor and forming a puddle, so I quickly ran upstairs to grab a towel, but when I came back down, my cup was exactly where it was before, filled to the top and no spillage anywhere at all. I think about it at least twice a week, and I still have absolutely no idea how or why that even happened. So 4 of us were hanging out and ordered delivery food. It was me and my girlfriend visiting my brother and his wife at their house. The first weird thing about this delivery was that the restaurant's Google Maps page had been vandalized with edits, so that some of the menu items were listed as misspellings of vulgar sexual phrases in a way that was vaguely racist in accordance with the cuisine. Young Poon Tang for $6.69 was the first one I saw. Point being, it seems worth noting that this restaurant was pranked or hacked or vandalized online, just because that could indicate someone invested in messing with this restaurant. Anyway, here's the glitch. My brother was the one who was going to write down all the orders and call it in. He took a random piece of trash, part of a frozen pizza box, I think, or some other frozen food box, to write the orders on, and we laughed about how small it was. Me, my brother, and his wife all decided we wanted banh mi sandwiches, which were, coincidentally, menu items 71, 72, and 73. My girlfriend said she wanted noodle dish and appetizer, and my brother wrote those down next. My brother's wife talked with him about the apps and ordered another app platter sample dish. While these things were happening, I kept looking at the menu, and then I decided I was going to change my order. Instead of a banh mi sandwich, I wanted a fried rice combination dish, number 53. I said this. My brother wrote my new order at the bottom of the list, filling up the piece of paper he was using. Then he crossed out the old order from the top. Then my brother also decided to change to a rice dish and wanted the fried rice in a clay pot, number 52. He crossed his old order out and then wrote the new one into the in-between space near his old order because my new order had filled out the bottom of the paper and there was no more space. He even made a comment at this point. You went from 73 to 53, and I went from 72 to 52. So we had our final orders, and he had them all written down. He called the restaurant, and they asked his name, and then he ordered the food. He mentioned one of the menu items like, "Can we please get 171? And the person was like, "What's that?" And he read it off the menu like, "The pork banh mi sandwich." So at this point, he realized they didn't really go by the numbers, and so he just said the menu item names instead. So he said something like, "And then we'd like a fried rice in a clay pot, and a fried rice combination plate, and tofu spring rolls, and a vegetarian pho, and the appetizer sampler." So the only menu item number he mentioned was the 71. So we go back and pick up the food and pay. We get home. We open it up, and me and my brother's food is each in a pint-sized standard Chinese food container, the white cardboard folded tube. On top of my container, in blue marker, it says 73. Over the top of the 7 is a red marker that says 5. So someone wrote 73 on my container, my original order before I changed it, and then wrote over the top of that 7 a 5 to make 53 my actual order. The same thing is on my brother's container. It has a 72 written in blue and then a red marker changing the 7 to a 5. If anyone wants to look at these containers, they would probably conclude someone on the phone said they wanted 72 and 73 and then changed it to 52 and 53. Ours were the only containers with markings. None of the other orders had menu numbers written on them at all. And the actual one banh mi sandwich that got ordered, number 71, came in a plastic wrap and a bag. Of course, any of the banh mi sandwiches would not fit inside a pint food container or be packaged that way. So, that's basically it. I have photos of the cardboard scrap with the orders written on it, as well as the food containers, and also screenshots of the vandalized online menu we saw on Google Maps. Basically, 4 people ordered food over the phone. Before ordering, 2 of us changed what we wanted. When the food arrived, our containers had our old choices written on them and corrected with the new choices. But all the decisions and changes were made before we called, so there's no way they would know our old choices. With a menu containing around 100 items, this seems beyond coincidence or random. To make this brief, my older brother died in 2000. Prior to this, he once was driving me in his Jeep when I was about 10 years old. In the Jeep, he had the Song 2 by Blur playing in his car, and he was dancing while driving, waving his arm, saying, "Woohoo!" I've kept this memory alive by having my license plate as Wahoo. Today, I met a random stranger at a hockey game. The hockey game happened to play the same song, and this girl turned to me and said, "My older brother played this one in his Jeep." I was completely confused and thought I heard wrong at first and said, "Say that again, I didn't quite hear you." And she literally repeated it again. She then went on to explain her brother died in 2000, and I asked her what her license plate said, and she said that it's Wahoo, and she's from New Hampshire. What are the odds this would happen? I stumbled across this sub today, and I immediately thought of a story that my family and friends still talk about. This happened in 2009 when I was 16 years old. It was the first weekend of summer, and nobody was home when I woke up around 11 a.m. I grabbed a snack and went down to the basement to watch TV. I had plans to hang out with a friend at 3 p.m. that day. Like I said before, I started watching TV at around 11, knowing I had 4 hours before I was supposed to head over to my friend's house. I had only been watching TV for about 30 minutes when my mom came down the stairs asking me where I'd been all day. I said, "What are you talking about? I've been awake for less than an hour." I look at my watch and see that it's well past 5 in the afternoon. I run upstairs and check my phone to see that I have several missed calls from my friend and my mom. My mom's side of the story is what makes me nauseous when I think about this, even to this day. She was with my little brother at his baseball game from 1 to 3 that day. She and my brother were home when I supposedly woke up and went down to the basement, but neither of them have any memory of even seeing me that morning. When my mom got home around 3, she checked the entire house for me, including the basement where I had been sitting on the couch watching TV. It's been 10 years, and I still have no idea what happened on that day. It is by far the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me, and although I talk about it with my family like it's funny, it genuinely chills me to my bones thinking about it. I'd like to preface this by saying my husband is an electrical engineer and I'm a teacher. We're not crazy people. So, back when my husband and I were dating, my husband was in a terrible car crash. His truck hit black ice and he slid into oncoming traffic. His truck was completely totaled, so was the other truck he hit. The weird thing is, though, both he and the other guy were completely fine. Not a scratch on them. All my husband had was a bruise on his knee. The first responders were baffled, as was the towing company and insurance when they realized no one had died or was severely injured. Fast forward to a few days after the crash. My husband comes over to my apartment. We're having a conversation about a university class we're both in, and he casually asks when I got the flat-screen TV sitting on my dresser. At this point, I'm very confused because I've had the little flat screen since I was 13 and had had it the entire year and a bit we'd been dating. I asked him what he's talking about, as I've always had that TV. He told me to quit pulling his leg and asked me what I did with the old tube TV. I had no idea what he was talking about and told him so. He's convinced I had a tube TV. I proceeded to get on Facebook and showed him a picture where we had taken 2 weeks prior with the TV in the background. It's a flat screen in the picture. My husband goes white like he's seen a ghost and just stares into space for a minute. His eyes started to water. I asked him what's wrong, and he said, "I swear to God I'm not crazy. You've had a tube TV since we started dating. It was a tube TV when we took that picture." I brushed it off as his head being rattled from the accident, and he didn't bring it up again. However, any time we hung out in my room, he'd always look at the TV weird. Fast forward 7 years. My husband and I have been married for a few years and decide that we're ready to be parents. I'm not on birth control, and we decide whatever happens, happens. We're not actively trying, but not preventing it either. So we're on vacation in Italy, wandering around Rome, and I feel like shit. I had had my period the week before, and it was the worst one I had had in my whole life. As we're walking around, I am suffering from back pain, chills, and horrific cramping. I go to the bathroom in a cafe and hurl my guts out, have diarrhea, and realize I'm menstruating heavily. Obviously, I'm weirded out since I had just had my period the week before. I clean myself up and go back to my husband and tell him I think I need a doctor. I have a pretty high pain tolerance, but this is insane. It's getting to the point I'm having trouble walking, and I'm starting to feel pain in my shoulders. I don't want to ruin our vacation, but I'm starting to really worry. My husband is smarter than me, sees the state I'm in, and says I'm visibly paler than when I went into the bathroom and gets me help. 20 minutes later, I'm on a stretcher and being taken to the hospital. An hour after that, I'm being prepared for emergency surgery, as doctors tell me I have a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. I have heavy internal bleeding, and if he doesn't perform surgery, I'm going to die. 6 hours later, I wake up very sore and tired. The doctor tells me I'm very lucky, and if I had waited any longer to seek medical attention, I'd be dead. My husband stays with me in the hospital the first night, then gets a hotel for the rest of my stay. A week later, we're cleared to fly home, and I go through a grueling month of healing from the surgery. 2 months after our return, somehow my husband and I get on the topic of fires, and he goes on about the dangers of kitchen fires, and I say, "No need to worry, we're all set with the extinguisher in the closet." He looks at me like I have 3 heads and asks me what I'm talking about. I remind him about the extinguisher in the front closet where we keep the coats. We've had it for 3 years. He insisted we buy one when we bought our house. My husband shakes his head and tells me he has no idea what I'm talking about and we don't have a fire extinguisher. I remind him about not only my memories of fighting about it if we really needed one, where to put it, buying it from Home Depot, but also installing it to the wall in the closet. He looks at me with confusion and tells me none of that happened. I get up, go to the front closet to show it to him, all the while cursing him for being an asshole for forgetting our 2-week fight about it, and lo and behold, no extinguisher. Not only is there no extinguisher, there's no holes in the wall where I know we installed it. No fresh paint. This wall has never been touched. I insist he's moved it and fixed the wall and ask why the fuck he would play such a stupid prank. He continues to insist we've never had one, let alone talked about getting one. This goes on for several minutes. I'm approaching hysterics, telling him to quit playing with me when he finally says, "Now you know how I feel about that TV." We didn't speak about it for a long time. Then after I found this thread, he brought up his theory that perhaps in another timeline or dimension, whatever you want to call it, we both actually died and we reset like a video game and the TV and extinguisher are glitches. I don't know if I agree with him. All I know is that I have never been so rattled in my whole life, and Every time I get something out of the closet, I'm overwhelmed with this feeling of wrongness. I know it should be there, but somehow it's just not. I can't explain it. He says he will go to his grave swearing I had a tube TV. I have 4 kids. I know I have 4 kids, but recently I just feel like there should be another one, but it's missing. When we go out, I head count and get flustered because I can't find the extra one. I have to consciously remind myself there are only 4, but my heart just doesn't believe it. Well, I just put it down as one of those weird feelings and push it aside. Then, my parents sent money to my kids. They sent $500. I called them and asked why they put in so much. They were confused and said that they told me they were spending $100 per kid. I reminded them that I only have 4 kids. They were silent for a moment, then just kind of laughed and said they must be getting old because they were thinking there was 5. Then tonight, my daughter walked into the lounge room. She looked around and said, "I know we're all here, but our family feels small." My son agreed. I hadn't said anything to anyone about my feelings lately because they already think I'm ancient and forgetful at 40. Thanks for reading if you've made it this far. Does anyone else ever have these feelings? I recently posted about me disappearing into thin air when I was sleeping and my family couldn't find me, and when I woke they swore up and down that they had searched all over for me but weren't able to find me. This is not an update, but something that just happened yesterday. 3 days ago, I was having a conversation with my father, and he was telling me about his university life. Basically, my dad came from nothing. He had a very difficult upbringing and went to the worst school and high school in our city. When it was time for him to join university, my grandfather passed away, leaving my dad to take care of the rest of the family as he was the oldest son. He took a wrong major because of wrong advice people were giving him, and he said how he regrets that to this day. The courses were taught in English, which is a second language for us, and how he didn't even know the language. My dad told me that it was the darkest time in his life, and he just wanted to run away and was even thinking of taking his own life. Now, very recently, he got his master's in English literature, and he was telling me that he didn't think it would ever be possible for him. My dad just recently finished this degree at the age of 55. The next morning, my dad had to drive to this town because his distant relatives live there and they're struggling financially. My dad is a very kind soul and he wanted to help them. The town is a 3-hour drive away. He usually takes public transportation, but didn't because of a recent crisis. He drove there, and my mom was worried, so we decided we'd keep calling him after every hour to check. Well, I decided to call him. Now, keep in mind, because it's a highway network, signals are very weak. He told me to wait and parked at a nearby restaurant. It was like a checkpoint for trucks. I don't know what came over me, but I started crying and went on to tell him how proud of him I was. I just babbled and kept saying that he shouldn't think he's lacking because he's not. He was an amazing father and a great person to look up to. My dad started crying, and he told me that he'll talk to me when he returns. Well, he returned, and he just hugged me and was telling me that how 30 years ago he was visiting the same town, and it was the time when he was at his lowest. He was visiting the same relatives, and he was in a bus which stopped at a petrol station. He called his mother, and when he picked up the phone without even dialing, he heard my voice. It was me telling him the exact same thing which I just said yesterday. He said that he didn't even call my grandmother, he just stood there and cried. It gave him the strength to keep fighting. He said he just now realized it was me whose voice he heard. My parents are now taking this as a sign from God who helped my dad when he thought no one was there for him. Hello again, little Vickies. Thanks so much for listening. Remember, if you have a story of your own you'd like to share, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Until next time, be good.